Hi, this is Joe Bolen, and welcome to learning about VisualBasic.net. In the past few videos, we've been working on a text editor project, and today we're going to hook up or wire up the information from our text box in our text editor to our printing task. And so you'll see it fully come to completion, all the different steps we've gone to up to this point dealing with printing. But before we start with our task today, let's take a look at where our documentation is for this video as well as for other videos in the series. To go out to the code that I'm using in this series is at pastebin.com/u/jboh. There you'll find the source code for what I'm doing. You'll also see code for other projects that I've done, and it'll give you a way for you to understand and study in more detail the code after you watch the video. In addition, you can pull that code into your own applications and modify it for your own particular needs. The main screen for our text editor project is out at Imager. You'll see the link there. And then, of course, you can see this video as well as other videos that I have out at YouTube at Bolen Presents. So pause your video if you'd like at this point in time and copy down these links. And then after the video is over with, go back out and take a look at the code to understand more fully about our printing project we're doing in our text editor. Well, let's go into Visual Studio, into our Windows Designer, and you see our main form up on the screen. And we've been coding in the past couple of videos the file menu option for our print preview, and our page setup. At this point, our code doesn't do much. In fact, let's run it real quick and you'll see we coded it just for an overview to get an idea of how to print. So let me run it. And what we'll do is just go in. There's no need for a file for our demo purposes we're working with. And we see that our page setup works fine. We can bring in our page setup and change the settings. And I showed you how I set it initially to default to my preferred margins on that. Also, we had the print preview where we could see ahead of time what the print would look like, as well as the print area where we could select the printer that we might like to use. For example, I like the PDF print driver for a lot of things. Also, we'll be giving in this episode our program's ability to present selected pages so that I can select a range instead of all pages. But right for now, we'll just go with all because I don't have that coded into this part of the code yet. So I can choose that, and I'll cancel that, and then we'll go take a look at our print preview where we can actually see the dummy code that we had in place so that you get an idea of our printing ability. So right here, we have our print preview dialog showing. We see that we printed our lines and we have our test border around the side with our 1/4 inch side margins and our inch top and bottom margins. And we can go right ahead and print that if we'd like. Right now I've got it set to go to the Primo PDF print driver, but if I wanted to go to a printer, I could do that as well. So this is what we've done so far. Now it's time to wire this thing up so that we can print information in our text editor. Let me close this out. Let's go back to our code and refresh a little bit. First of all, we put in the print document component into our project, and we basically left everything as the default. We also then added the print dialog, the print preview dialog, and the page setup dialog, and put code behind that as well in our menu tool strip area for the events. Let's go back to the print document, which was the important one, and here's where we fired off in our code the print document 1 print method, and that started the printing process. And I told you also at the time that we go into 4 possible events when we do the print method of the print document. The main one is the print page method, which we have code behind. We also have the begin print, which fires off at the very beginning as we first start to print, and we have the end print, which fires off at the very end of printing. And then we have the query page settings that occurs every time just before we do the page print. The purpose of that is so I can go in and set some settings, and we'll be using the begin print in a little bit, where we can initialize some things as we go into the beginning of the printing process. And if we needed to, we could do our housekeeping updates and cleanup on our end print. And if I wanted to do some changes on the fly as it's printing, I could do that also in the query page print settings on that. But let's take a look at what we need to do for today to make our program wired up. So let me go into the code. And I have the code up here, and basically I have our import system drawing printing part brought in that we'll need especially for our printing. We've done that earlier, but if you are doing this for the first time, you'll need to bring that into your code. That allows us to quickly code some of the graphics that we'll be needing. In fact, we're basically drawing our page before we print it out. Now, I'm going to add in here for this one some new variables that we're going to be needing. I allowed initially that we could have a page range. So I want to have some variables that I want to bring in so that I can have that page range ability. So I have a from page number and a to page number that I'm bringing in. I'm initializing them initially as 0 and 9,999 pages, quite a lot of paper there. So we could have those set for later on. We're going to actually code that part in the begin print area where you'll see that code take place. Now, as we scroll down to our code, let's go into the printing area on our code, and I'm going to just remind you that it is the print document 1 print method that starts everything off. And then we come down to the actual part where it does the print page. And the print page is the workhorse for our printing. Right now we have it coded just for some simple things. It's just doing line by line printing, and we've hard coded in the font and the color for our printing on that, and also our title we've given it hard coding. Well, it's time for us now to replace this with our code to wire it up with our text box. So I'm going to go back to my code that I already have created and bring that into play. So let me drag and bring that in. And you'll see in a minute as we discuss it how this works. Okay, let me keep going a little further. There we go. So copy. And now I'm going to come over here and paste this in place. And we're going to paste it from here and replace all the code within that spot with our new code that's going to wire it up. And I'll then discuss what we did. Okay, we've got it in place. Let's now talk about it. I'm going to come back up to the very top. Some of it's very similar to what we had as we did the overview, but now we've added a few more variables, and we're going to print not only line by line, but we're also going to print a page with word wrapping on that, and so we want to allow for that to be done as well. So we come in here, we set some basic things. Static variables maintain their value after you leave the procedure, and so when we come back in, they'll have those values when we come back in. And you'll see that difference with these static variables over just a declaring a variable with the dim statement. Once again, I'm using Arial 14 point for my header font that I'm going to be using, but now I'm using my text box's font and setting it for my detail. And also I'm using my text boxes for color to become the color that'll be part of the printing process instead of hard coding that in. Once again, we have the part here to determine our landscape and portrait settings for most importantly, we're developing what is our printable area of width and height that we'll be using, and it varies depending upon if we're in landscape or portrait. Okay, let's come on down now in our code. Now at this time I'm taking out the rectangle. I just commented it out so we're not drawing the red border around our printable area. And I'm also adding something a little new here. At this point in time, instead of hard coding the title in, we're going to take the file's name, remove the extension, which in our case will probably be txt or log, because those are the two basic files we're going to be working with. We're going to drop that off by using the get file name without extension method of the path class, and that'll give us our header title for our report. Now, one of the little things that's difficult to work with is the tab stops. And if you have a number of tab stops, they don't print correctly. So what I've done is I'm taking the control character tab and I'm replacing it with 8 spaces from the text box. And at this point, I'm going to use a new string, my temp string, so that I leave my text box text property alone, and I'm using a brand new string. But I'm replacing all the tab characters in the text with 8 spaces. Now let's come on down into our code, and one of the things we had in our original design was we could allow the text box multi-line area to be word wrap or not. And here we're coming into where we're looking to see if it's word wrap. And if it is word wrap, we're going to print this by looking at all the characters that we can put on a page, and then we're going to print that page and then examine whether we have any more characters to print, and then we'll determine whether we have to set the has more pages or not variable to continue on to print. So one of the things we're going to do is set the format to our string format line limited. In other words, we're looking at the end of the line now, not the putting the ellipses and trimming off. We also are going to be looking at characters this time versus looking at the whole line. So I have the characters chars in here. Now, one of the things we have that's a little unique here is we're looking at the ability to print from page whatever to whatever instead of all the pages. So I have to condition my printing based off of, am I in the print range that I have allowed the user to select. So you'll see these conditional clauses around the drawstring method that we're using. So if I'm in the correct page range for printing, then I will print the header part of my page. And here we see our header title coming in and our page number coming into being printed, but only if I'm in the right page range. Then we come down to a new area, and that's the graphics measure string. And what this one does is it looks at the code. In this case, it's looking at temp string, and it's starting from a certain area to the end and seeing how much can I get on that page. And once again, this is one area that I think for best understanding, because there are a number of overloads to the measure string, and it's a very important part of printing, I recommend you go out to Microsoft Development Network and take a look. And if you're bringing this into the code, all you do is need to put your cursor on the word and hit F1, and it'll take you out to the spot. So please take a look at measure string. So what we're doing is determining how many characters can we print in that printable area of that page. And then based off of that, we're going to take a look at some other areas, whether we have end of line situations with the line feed or spaces at the end to determine whether we need to adjust some of our settings for the next time around. So this is the main part through here that we need to look at. This is only doing the process of determining what can be printed on that page. The next series of lines here, once again, is the drawstring, where we actually take the information that we've extracted from the measure string process, and we're ready now to print the amount of characters that will fit on that page with the font that we're using and the brush color that we've chosen, staying within the bounds of our printable area with the format that we're using. Once we print that page, then we need to look at where we are with the characters. We need to set our page number up. And if I'm doing this within a page range, I might need to loop around to make certain I'm within the page range for that. At this point, then I come out. I'm going to be taking a look at, do I have any more characters on that? Also, the page numbers correct for where I want to go. Perhaps I've already come to the end of what I want to print, the range, and I want to stop, or maybe I have more pages to print. So this part here is examining whether the conditions are such that I'm going to have more pages, or I'm done printing and I'm going to reset the values of the current character and page number back to 0 and 1 accordingly. So this is the part where it allows us to examine and look for more pages. And the E has more pages is the variable that we need to set for being letting the system know whether we're going to come back into this procedure or not. Now that takes care of the word wrapping area, and there's a lot going on. The important areas to learn about are the eGraphics measure string and also the eGraphics drawstring. And there are a number of overloads, or I should say, you can have number of arguments that you're passing into that method, and based off the type of overload you're using, it'll do different things. This is one is doing specifically for dealing with all the characters that'll fit on a page. And then the drawstring is doing the actual printing to the page. So that's why it's conditioned around if I'm in the right page range for printing. Okay, well, the Nowrap option is very similar. In fact, it was part of our overview on that. Once again, we're setting our string format with Nowrap. We're going to truncate the end of our string if it won't fit on the printable area with the 3 dots for the ellipsis, and we're basically using a quick math procedure to figure out how much height do we have for the font that we're printing with. Then once again, we're doing the very same thing in terms of doing our header information that we did up in the wrap section. The difference is now we're looking at not characters, but we're looking at lines, and the drawstring method works a little bit differently here, and we're incrementing once again our location and height based off of what line we're working on. Then we're doing the check on our line numbers per page and setting everything, and based off the conditions once more, if we still have some more lines to print after we've printed our first page, we'll set the E has more pages to true, or if we're done with all our printing, it will do it to false and reset our current line number and page number. So a little bit different is being done for the eGraphics drawstring for a line with no wrap versus when we're wrapping. We're looking at characters, not so much what we can fit on one line. So let's watch this part run in our code. So I'll hit start, and now we need to bring in a file. And I'm going to open up and go to my recent places, go to my text editor documents, and I'm going to bring in, I think, let's bring in A Tale of Two Cities. There we go. Okay, here's our Tale of Two Cities, and this is the first chapter of the Tale of Two Cities on that. And we already have our page set, and let's just go right on into the print preview, which will fire off our print. 2 pages are part of this one, and here we see with wrapping in place, our print preview is showing it. It's wrapping around. I'm going to go to 2 pages, on it to let you see, and there are actually 2 pages to this on that, and I could also keep it at 1 page and scroll up or change the page number this way. There are only 2 for this one way I have it. Now let's see some changes now. Let's change our font and color to our code. So I'm going to come in here and change that. This time I'm going to use blue for the font, and let's make it 14 point for our code. I'm going to hit OK. You'll see this is changed. Now let's do the file print preview. And now you see the code again. It's now in blue, and the font sizes have changed accordingly. And now, instead of just 2 pages, well, we still have just 2 pages for this one. It's not a very long chapter. That's why I picked it. So we have 2 pages for this one, and we now have it in the font's color and size that we are using in the text editor. We are hard coding, though, the title area, and you'll see the title came in with the name of our file, taking off the extension of txt from the file name, using that for the header, and also our page numbers are there. So we've got that coded in. There's a lot to learn about that part. Now we need to add one last thing. So I'm going to close this out and let's go back to our code. Well, we've got the code working for the wrapping and no wrap for printing, and that's a real nice step ahead. But now let's take a look at that print document. Remember, we have the event of print page that we've just updated, but now we're going to add a begin print, and I'm just going to double click on this to create the event, and let's go into our code. This happens when we first start to print, and here's where I want to condition how we're going to be printing so that we can print our page range or not print at all. So let me go back to my pre-done coded text and pull that information in for the begin print. So I'm going to grab this, and then we'll talk about what I have brought in. Okay. There we go. So what's going to happen here as we come in, one of the things I'm going to look at is the text property full of nulls or white space? If it doesn't have anything there, there's no purpose in printing. So what I'm going to do is set eCancel to true, and basically what happens is it'll end the printing process. As we leave out, we will end this sub and the printing will stop. So this is just a look and say, do I have anything to print? There's no purpose in trying to print something that's not there. Okay, we do have something to print. We've passed it and we're in the else section now. At this point, we need to look at whether we are in a selective range area. And here's where I take the print document 1 printer settings and look at the print range. And I'm going to set that. If it's set, if I have some pages set for my print document 1, then I'm going to set those to my from and to page. Otherwise, I'll just make it 0 and 99, which will be my inclusive range for all pages. So this allows me to now do the selective range that you saw with the if statements around all the eGraphics drawstring methods in the PagePrint event. So let's now watch this print and see it go. Okay, I'm going to make it larger for you and then do a compile in debug mode. Let's bring back in our document, and I'll bring in A Tale of Two Cities again. And this time let's make the font even bigger, so I'm going to change the font to something nice and big. Let's go 18 point, and let's make it let's something crazy like red on that, and I'm going to say okay. And so now let's do a print, but this time we're going to go to the print option, And well, before I do that, let me cancel it. Let's see what it looks like in print preview. I have 4 pages now and not just 2 because I changed the font size. Okay, and there you see it, and I can click on it and see 2 pages at a time, 3 pages, or 4 pages if I'd like. And I can go back here and change the settings and go through 1 page at a time and see what I want. And let's say that I decide that I want to print only page 1 because I love the beginning of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. So to do that, I go back and I hit File, Print. And this time when I go in, I'm going to choose not my default printer, but the PDF printer. I'm going to choose to print only page 1. So I'm going to hit page 1 and hit Print, and it'll go right to the printer. This time it goes to the Primo PDF printer. I'm going to hit Create, and we'll see that I have just page 1 showing up. Let me make it a little smaller here. It's there we go. Let me get that on the screen. And so now we're seeing just page 1 that I've printed on that. So I now have selective range on my printing. Well, we've got everything in place. We've got it so we can do our page setup and change our settings and our margins and our orientation of printing. For example, if I want landscape this time, I'm going to grab those and change the margins a little bit. And now we'll go landscape, and I'll do a print preview. And once again, in the print preview, I'll see all the pages. In this case, there will not be too many pages. Well, there actually might be more because landscape makes it a little bit different. So now we see it in landscape mode where I have a total of 5 pages instead of just 2 or 3. Let me close that out. And also I can selectively print. If I wanted to print just 2 and 3, I could go in here to the print, choose only pages 2 through 3, and hit print. And once again, I'll bring my Primo PDF into play and create the document. And now you'll see that I have 2 pages down here, and I'm in, I'll make it fit the page, and we've got only pages 2 and 3 that we're printing. Well, we've got it done. We've got everything going in our program that makes it work. The only trouble is I'm not really satisfied yet. There are a couple things more I'd like to add to this project. First of all, I want to make it so that all the different buttons and menu options are enabled or disabled based upon the states that they may be in. That's one thing I want to do. Then also I want to create the program so that I can keep the user's font settings and position location of the window and the color they use. So if they like a certain color and like a certain font, they don't have to set it every time. It'll stay with the program. And then also I want to be able to have that program from a command line, so I can just pass in a file name and it'll fire off with the file name. We'll learn how to do all those, plus learning how to deploy in the next couple of videos. So come back. We've got it almost done, but let's now make it a little bit better and even more professional. So take care, get your hands dirty in the code, and get out there to PagePrint/u/JBOH and take a look at the code.